Hello, hello. My name is April Malone with Yes, I Work From Home, and this is the podcast. Today I have Jennifer Whitt with me, and she is someone that I have learned. I've learned. I've gotten to know you a little bit online through a Facebook group for moms who work. And Jennifer is like a powerhouse. She's got her hands on 100 things, and she's got kids, and just went through a big job change. I actually helped review her resume. Jennifer, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? I know you've just had a big job change. We'll probably be a little vague as we talk about your previous job, but you can talk about your experience for sure. You've got a lot of that. So go ahead.
Yeah, so I spent 16 plus years in the corporate world in kind of a tech marketing, learning and development field role, kind of a jack of all trades. So I had run an inside sales team and a customer service group, did a big migration of data, did a really cool Salesforce launch, and just got to learn a lot of things. But I recently made the choice to kind of change paths and start my own consulting firm. And I am so happy. I have more work than I know what to do with. And I get to partner with some people I've met over the years who are just absolute powerhouses as well. And so it's just been quite an adventure over the last, I think it might have been just a month. It's been a month.
Right. I feel like we first talked maybe almost a year ago. Like we were one of us, either you or I can't even talk right now, wanted to record something about like how to teach your coworkers how to use Teams or Zoom, just with
it was kind of past the first hump of pandemic,
but we were still running into people that just needed the extra boost.
Yeah, I supported probably 500 independent sales reps, and just some of the quick tips, right? I could get on a Zoom with them or a Teams meeting or whatever webinar service and talk them through it. But the confidence for them on their own to do it or to Google it just wasn't there. So I think we were like, we could do this podcast and talk about how to do those things and kind of navigate that. And then, yeah,
it was before I started this podcast. And so I don't know if either
2 years ago.
It was a while ago though. Anyway, the first time I ever saw you on video, you were making a post into our group and you were hiding in a closet from your children. And you were like, does anyone ever just need to like hide in a closet to get away? And I mean, you're in a community of people who totally get it. So that's why I liked you, because I was like, I get it. I actually work in a closet to get away. So,
and that community has been, I want to say it's probably almost 3 or 4 years and that's grown. There, obviously with the pandemic, we've had quite a few more people join who are working remotely for the man, as we say. And it's important to be willing to laugh about it a little bit.
Absolutely. And you really have a diverse group of people in there. A lot of people, I think everyone is identifying as a mom, right? Is it a mom group?
Yes, it is a mama's group. So I think there are a few who have asked, like, I'm a plant mama. Does that count? And
yeah.
Considered removing the mamas, but everyone's welcome, but we definitely do have a lean and a focus on that balance between remote work and parenting. It's a dance.
For sure. So you've been basically an admin over that. And then you started another group that was a little bit more broad for men and women, just anyone who has been put into the work from home lifestyle unexpectedly, especially with the pandemic. And that one hasn't been like as active, but it grew really fast too.
It did. So when everything shut down for the pandemic, we saw a huge influx of requests to join our remote working mamas group. And that had become a really safe space for our kind of core members. And so we didn't want to just open the floodgates. So we opened kind of a temporary space for the community of remote workers. And it grew, and we got some like, what are your tips and tricks? But I think a lot of those members either returned pretty quickly to the workforce or in a lot of sad cases, like they were actually let go. So when their employer went remote, they actually either ended up closing or doing some kind of layoff.
Furlough or all of the temporary things that people did to get through those few months. Yeah. So it isn't as a dynamic, active group, but it's still there. So do you remember the name of the other remote working community? Is that right?
Yes. So I can pull them up and look. So we have remote working mamas, and then we have remote work community and remote working community. And so they're kind of all tied together. So it's like a page and two groups. And really just started out of the need to connect with others who understood, right? So I'm not just at home able to do my dishes, although that does happen on occasion. It's probably more likely if I'm working at home versus the office. But really being honest about what that balance looks like and how overwhelming it can be.
And a lot of the women that are in there are working like a full-time job, with benefits, working for corporate. There are people who are entrepreneurs and things in there, or I don't know if you even allow people who identify as remote working that just do like an MLM. Do you?
So so as somebody who loves their MLM, we are not a place where that is supported. There are a lot of groups that do that. VIP Kids has tons of subgroups. Even my lovely hair MLM has its own groups. All those kind of have those spaces. We're not a hustle group, right? So this is really about that balance of that 40-hour week, or maybe your own independent entrepreneurship role. It's not really the place for realtors to talk about their balance. There are spaces for that. So it's not industry specific, but there are some that are kind of excluded because they already have a huge space.
That's true. That's true. Let's see. Let's go. You are doing a lot of things, and I'd like you to just kind of rattle off some of the things that you do or are right now. I know that you started a new program. You just changed houses, started a business out of your home.
Yeah, we did that. So I'm going to kind of go on priority, right? So number one is my family. And unfortunately they get focused time, but they get a sliver of said time. In our house, we really care about community. So we're very, very focused on building community locally. So sometimes that's serving on a nonprofit board. It might be my husband volunteers with the Red Cross, writing kind of disaster PR things. So we kind of find time for that. And then we also, I manage another virtual community focused on our micro community. So where we live locally. About 7 years, I started a page for that, and it has its own nonprofit board, and we're working on our nonprofit status, and that takes time. So family, community, and then you have to pay your bills. So I with my husband started a photography business years ago, mostly corporate photography, event photography, not portraits and family. That wasn't really our jam, but that was called Veranda. And in my husband's prior kind of job transition, he had taken over that and done Veranda business and brands. And so last year, because in the middle of a pandemic, why don't we just move houses? We had a really great opportunity where our neighbor was selling her home for a very reasonable price. And so we picked up, we bought the house first and we painted it, and we kind of weighed our options, and it really was a better fit for us. Our house is really unique. It was a former dentist office. It's located in our basement, and the basement is a walkout basement in the front with a full parking lot. And so we moved in I want to say we bought the house in September. We didn't officially move in until closer to Christmas, but we had all this space, and I had a ton of friends who are crafters or, entrepreneurs in their own right, making coffee, making candles, whatever it might be. And all the craft fairs were canceled. And I had this 1,500 square foot basement. So we took about half of it and opened up that kind of front office area that literally, if you imagine walking to your dentist office, like their front entryway with this huge desk, and we just set up shop. And so people literally would make an appointment online to show up, and they'd write down what they took, and I'd invoice them online.
So it's honor system.
It was last year. Absolutely. And I mean, you don't know about it. Like, we don't have like a big lit sign out front telling people to come in. So it was definitely by appointment. We knew who you were when you were coming in. And it worked out really well. So this year we're changing it up a little bit. Still very similar distance shopping. I don't have time to work the store full time, so that's not an option. So we're doing kind of like sort of like pop-up days. So last weekend, I think it was the weekend before, we did kind of a launch. So we had a big party, a little fall party outside because we have this huge parking lot. And you could go in and grab a few items and ring up and get charged. So people can ring up on their phones now, or they can, sign a piece of paper, or, masked up. I'm willing to ring them up if I'm here. So
You have a parking lot. How many spaces does it have? You can do parties out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll have to send you a picture for you to slide in, but I think technically it has 6 spots for the store, and there's like 4 more spots, and then like the driveway. So
that's awesome.
Pretty big house. We got a deal. Like, we're not rolling it. We just got a deal.
And when you said neighbor, like it was like over the woods and through the, how do you say it?
It was literally over the creek.
Over the creek. That's what I was through.
Yeah. So there's a creek between here and there. And what's funny is we moved everything and then we built the bridge. So there's a bridge now.
Did you have to like drive through the neighborhood to get around to the other side, or were you just like schlepping things over the
Well, we paid movers for the big stuff. But they, at one point, their truck was full. And so we took like an old door and they just kind of went down in the creek and over. Yeah.
So when you talk about the different kinds of stress events that people can have in their life, moving is one, job change is another, and also school stuff. So you started school.
Oh yeah, that was the other thing. So we got a door here. We've got family, community. We moved / the store, and then work. So I was working a full-time job, and I also decided to go back to school in the middle of a pandemic, kind of around the same time. So I had been considering going back for a degree in instructional systems technology and adult education from IU, and that's Indiana University. And I'd been considering it for years. And I just one day, it was actually right before we bought the house, was like, I'm kind of bored at home and we're here and we kind of have a routine. Like, I could take a class. And so I signed up. So I'm actually a year and a semester in to the program, and I love it. So it's really kind of in my wheelhouse and what I was doing corporately. And it's really a fun program. And I feel like I'm continuing my education. That's kind of my, some people go and get like manicures and pedicures or facial or like a nap. I take a class.
I like that. I'm on that. Yeah. My master's degree is actually adult education. So we probably will have some of the similar classes there. Yes. There was a lot of overlap.
Starting those courses, and I'm a little overwhelmed, but it'll be fine. Participation trainings this semester.
I think there's a lot of overlap, at least in the program that I went through a few years back in Minnesota, with a lot of HR stuff. Mm-hmm. There's also a lot of overlap with some of the administration things, like school administrators might go through. Some of the principals and superintendents were in the same classes as me. Yeah, it's interesting.
It is. And I'm kind of trying to feel out what the best path is for me now that I'm not in that corporate role. Like, is this degree path still the right one? Or is there something else that might be more suited? My long-term goal, because, I don't have enough on my plate, is to be a dean of students at a community college. So I'm really passionate about making sure people have the ability to have community. I've done some work in that space before, and the demands of a role like that really are nights and weekends as well as daytime. It's like a all-encompassing one thing. The energy you have to give to it. So this isn't the right time to kind of go down that path. But, there's that kind of my goal.
You still have little babies right now. So
I got a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old.
Okay.
And they need me they need me at their baseball games, and she still snuggles to go to bed. So it's a balance. So we have the pop-up shop, which we only do like just between, Halloween and Christmas. We've got our business, and I've got more clients than I know what to do with. And we have to find time for family. So blocking that time has been really important. So finding time to interview with you took me a year, but I did it eventually. And I also, I've got a class meeting after this. So this is the day my husband knows for the next 8 weeks, like, I don't know what they're eating for dinner, but they're going to figure it out. So you have to be willing to let that go.
And he also works from home. Because I remember when we were talking, you were still in your old house and you were like carrying the camera through the entire house, trying to find like a quiet place to sit that day. And I think you ended up in your bedroom.
I did. And I deadbolted that door.
But right now, you said you're sitting in your son's room.
So I'm hiding in my son's room, not because this house is not big enough or that I don't have a gigantic office downstairs or my husband's office that I could have stolen. But my daughter was at the bottom of the stairs when this was about to start. And I know better when I have 2 minutes before a call than to walk anywhere near her. So I was like, well, where can I go where she will not interrupt me? And this is a better choice than my closet. But we actually have space here. So one of the reasons we moved is this is a 3-4 floor home. So we have the basement, our main level, and then we have bedrooms on like a half level. Our other house was a ranch with a basement, but the basement wasn't semi-finished, but it can get Wi-Fi down there. There's concrete block. It was just hard. So we really had that main floor and everybody's there. And so it was very hard to find space. And, in our group, we have moms living in all kinds of situations. And a lot of times, whether you have an office space or not, you end up tucking yourself where you can. So while I have office space that I can actually like deadbolt and go down some stairs and hide from them, I have to get by them first. It's not worth trying right now.
So in your old house, you had an office that was your remote work office, and then your husband came home for the pandemic and took it over?
So in our basement, we had a remote working office that was hardwired, and I had this beautiful wood desk. It's gorgeous. Yeah, he stole it. And so he would actually disappear down to the basement every day and lock the door. And somehow he got to work 8 uninterrupted hours every day. Love him, not like that's what he needs. And I was working some adjusted hours. So I was actually working, our manufacturing facilities needed some files like right in the morning. And so as things cycled overnight, I'd wake up at like 4 a.m., 6 a.m. and I would work for 4 hours, knock out what I could before the kids woke up, deliver those files. And then I would take a break and I would mom until 1 or 2. And then I'd work for another 4 hours.
Okay.
And I was really fortunate to be in an organization that trusted me to do those things. That flexibility isn't something all of our remote working families are allowed. And I don't know that it would have been allowed pre-pandemic. I'd always worked remotely, but there's those office hours you're expected to be available during.
I remember at one point you were like, I got to get a nanny. Did you end up getting like a part-time nanny?
We failed at that again and again and again.
It's hard. I've been through that path.
So part of it is I'm severely asthmatic. My husband never wants to be a single father, and we take the COVIDs very seriously. So we needed to find somebody who was isolating as much as us. We thought we did. That didn't work out. And then we had a family friend's daughter work here for a while. That didn't work out for some other reasons. And it helped. We were still in the house, right? And we were in the other house. So you really couldn't isolate yourself, right? When you're at that point, 2-year-old knows you're in that house, like they're going to find you, or they're going to be so loud that you really can't concentrate anyways. We did not go to the step of like a professional nanny, right? Like that's a cost, at least in our community, that it would be a big portion of what we make. And that in the middle of a pandemic didn't feel like the right fit. So we just hustled the whole time as best we could.
Just weathered the storm.
We did. And then last year.
But you had the adjusted hours, which helped you do that.
I did. I was exhausted all the time, but I had the adjusted hours. What helped also was having I guess he was 6.5, 7 when it started, but having an older kid who would handle Netflix, right? Like handle some of those things that aren't, if you were like, hey, if I'm going to balance being a full-time working mother and give my kids 8 engaging hours, that is not what we did, right? Like we duct taped it together and everybody was alive and mostly fed by the end. And that, that was it. And I think
the snacks accessible.
That's a big deal. So you say that at our other house, our kids could they were comfortable climbing on our counters. These counters are not any higher, but my kids will not climb up. They just won't, everything got moved down.
Yep. We've got low shelves.
And
if it's reachable, they can have it. If it's high on the top shelf, we actually have a box that says do not touch.
Oh, yeah. So we're all Operation Calories here. So we have a 4-year-old who likes to selectively eat. And so, especially when she was 2, she's very, very petite. She still is. It was Operation Eat Food. So, like,
Yeah.
if it's a Reese's cup and that's what you want, I mean, those are calories. I mean, we will offer you 3 actual meals and we will give you good, healthy snacks.
Yep.
But like,
We have a kid like that too. You want to
there's
eat
peanut
ice
butter
cream?
in
You
there.
bet. Please eat more. You want a
Please
big one? I'll give you a big
something.
one. Yeah, we got
Right.
that right now.
So we were navigating a lot of things.
Yeah.
I think the other side is finding time to be a wife, and I'm not very good at that. So I am very blessed to have a husband who puts up with me.
Same. I get that. Yes.
Oh, and we hired a cleaning lady. Like throughout the entire pandemic, we had a cleaning lady. I want to be very clear. There are some things you do not give up. Getting my home cleaned is one of those. It helps us stay married. That's the best thing I've ever done as a wife. I said, we're going to have somebody else do this work.
That was one of my goals actually last year. And then the pandemic changed everything. And we still also felt a little uncomfortable with the idea of having the stranger in our home, someone who, we didn't know what their protocols were as far as like COVID.
There was a period where we did not have anyone. And then we moved into the new home. It was clean, by the way. That was really helpful.
Mm.
And so that was kind of through fall. We actually ended up with COVID. Not the store's fault, but a whole other story. One time, it only takes one time being around someone. But then we got our cleaning person to come back, and she's a lifesaver. And because this house is big enough, if we're here and she's here, even though like some people are less pandemic scared right now or taking precautions less, like we're not in her space. Like she cleans better when I'm not around, and I feel less judged when I'm not around her cleaning my house. So we all migrate to the basement, and that is where we stay until she's gone. And we stay on her space, and we believe in the blessing of a house cleaner. And it's like it cost about as much as therapy, and I feel like it is completely worth it.
Therapy, yes. I think I had to pick that too. Tell me about your basement. So half of it is a store, but you keep referring to your offices down in the basement. Is there one or two down? Are there one or two down there?
It's a dental clinic.
Yes.
And we will not talk to zoning about the zoning on our home occupational dental clinic. We've got toothbrushes and we can refer you to a dentist. But for a few weeks a year, we have a extended garage sale down there with a roof, and it's a establishment. But very much like a dentist office, there is the entryway. We've removed that desk. My grandparents were jewelers, and the jewelry store that they had owned, the new owner actually had retired and was closing it. So we actually now have jewelry cases. It's very swanky. I can send you a picture to include. And so that's one room. And then off of that's a half bath and a little hallway. And down the hallway are 2 exam rooms, a storage room, what used to be the X-ray hallway, and a small kitchen.
Wow.
And then behind that is like a rec room space.
Your basement is bigger than my house. We're at about
my basement is bigger than my first house.
Okay.
So we used to live in like a 3-bedroom ranch. It was like 900 square feet. This is I think it's like a 1,400 square foot basement.
Yeah. Wow.
It's very oddly set up though. So it doesn't feel that big when you go down, right? There's like one main room when you go down the stairs. Or if you come in the front door, there's one room. And then those exam rooms are like 9 by 10.
So are you using those as your little offices then? They're not very big.
One of them is like an office craft room. The other one is housing my nephew right now.
Oh.
Otherwise, I'd have a craft room and an office.
Right. And when you're not doing...
sorry. They both have oxygen and nitrogen like plugs. There's no chemicals left. And then they also have plumbing because there used to be a sink, but we've taken that out.
Wow.
So they're very curious little rooms.
When you're not hosting your extended garage sale from October through December, what are you doing with that big space? Is it just sitting there?
Mm-hmm. It is. Obviously it's only been 1 year. A lot of times I actually work from the store. So I had my desk in the store space at one point, but once we got the jewelry counters a few months ago, that didn't really make sense. There is a desk space there where I can work, and there's some beautiful windows there. Mm-hmm. So it's a nice little hideaway.
Do the exam rooms have windows?
They have. So because we have a nephew in one, now they don't have doors. But they have egress windows.
Okay.
And so there's 2 half baths down there. So they have those as well.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a
So
big
fun.
basement. And there's a lot of toilets in this place. And the cleaning lady does not clean the basement.
Okay.
Can't afford for all that. She only
Right.
cleans where we live. We don't live in the basement.
So how has working from home changed for you in the last year? Like you've changed houses, you've changed jobs. What was your day like and what is your day like now?
So when I first started working remotely, I walked my kindergartner to class or to the bus or drove him, something. And then I just kind of settle down and do what I did for my corporate role. I didn't have micromanagement, right? So I was trusted to get the work done, but I had quite a bit of flexibility. So one day a week, I would take my lunch at my son's elementary school, and I really didn't take lunch. I just made copies. We had quite a few doctor's appointments that year, so I would, take calls from there and do what I needed to do. That kind of continued it throughout most of this. There was a portion where I needed to go work in one of our factories. I was actually gone for 6 weeks on site.
I remember that. It was like last spring, right?
Yeah, I work nights. I'm not built to work nights, and I led a team of 150. Great team, great company. It's not why I left, but it was an experience. And my husband held it together. So he was working at home and had 2 kiddos. Now our daughter was in full-time care. So when I first worked remotely, like pre-pandemic, kids were in full-time care. I was home by myself at the house all day. I might start some whatever. I might work from bed. No one judged me. No one cared. I just did my thing. And then the pandemic hit, and my husband actually came home first before the kids' school closed. Our daughter was still in full-time care at an in-home daycare, and our son was in school full-time. And it was a shock just to have him home that first week. Like he was like, "Oh, let's get lunch," and I was like, "Dude, I work through lunch. Like I eat at like 2:00 when I want to, or like like you're just so self-driven." And then the kids came home, and then I worked the weird schedule. Our son eventually went back last fall. So he started remotely and then went back in person because his remote teacher got called back in class. And so we loved her and went with her. And he was in session, I think, from fall break until Thanksgiving, maybe not even that long. And then they went fully remote again.
Really?
At that point, our daughter was pulled. We weren't gonna go back and forth.
It got pretty crazy last year.
It did. And then at one point, she was actually back in full-time in the spring, and so was he, and I left for 6 weeks. And they actually were both in full-time care. So my husband got to have my pre-pandemic experience for a little bit.
Okay.
But then my son got put on quarantine. So he had an 8-year-old he had to wrangle. And then this year, we started our daughter in person. She ended up with RSV after 4 days. Was not COVID. God. But she was home for 3 weeks. And by the time we wanted to take her back, she really just had some fear and anxiety around it. And I'm not dragging my 4-year-old into a public, I'm just not doing it. And not in the middle of a pandemic. Like I'm not going to forgive myself. And maybe I'm a pushover. Like I dragged my son kicking and screaming all the time. Like whatever, go to preschool. But this is COVID. So we have a local co-op. So she goes 3 days a week. They're half days. And then our nephew watches her those afternoons. And the other 2 days, Tuesdays, my mother watches her. And then Thursdays, I work a 4-day week and I get to spend the day with her.
Nice.
So that's a new thing. Leaving my other company and picking up clients through a consulting firm. I can say Thursdays I'm booked.
Nice.
Now, if there's a have to meeting, okay. But having the flexibility to give her that day is awesome. She'll be in kindergarten next year. And I like her a lot better when I spend a day just on her. And I'm not trying to like, oh, let me listen to this webinar while I make you lunch, or I'm playing with you, but really I'm updating a website while I watch you play. Like that's not fair to her. So yeah, it's changed a lot.
We did that with our kid who was in preschool. Our youngest ended up in preschool. Our older 2 actually went straight to kindergarten. But yeah, I had Mondays with her. That was her. She had a 4-day week, and that was our special day. We called it our special day. And on our special day, we would, have a picnic. She would read. We had a reading lesson book called How to Teach a Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons. And we would only do it on Mondays most of the time. And we just book it through like 7 lessons in one day. And she still sometimes says, Mom, Mondays are still like a special day, right? But she's in school full time now. Yeah, she's 6.
But that's the hard part, right? Like, how do you carve out that time? And I've been onboarding a client for the last couple of weeks, and so I haven't had that special day. And she's home today, and I'm working here as opposed to I also have a co-working space that I can escape to. We believe in having backup.
Yeah.
It's a kind of community space. It's less than $100 a month. It's just, they have free beer. It's great.
Wow.
We did it pre-pandemic. We had canceled it. They reached out and I was like, sure. I mean, it's $80, right? Like,
is there a conference room in there? Because that's why I wanted to rent one. I was going to basically have one just for the conference room.
3.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah. Okay. And I need it because while I do have the shop, my business brand clients, like, they don't want to know I'm running a little gift shop, right? Like, okay, that's not the look and feel that they want. They want to look and feel like you are a consultant. You are a professional. I am. I also happen to sell coffee and cuss word socks in my basement. It's fine.
I think that's something that, like, I don't know, as work from home evolves, I feel like in the past, and I've talked with a few people about this recently, the whole idea of like having a storefront or something like that to be the professional look, I think is starting to go away. And maybe you could eventually carve out that front room a little bit so that it could be, a space where, you have the ultimate work from home situation.
It's literally like, we call it like pretending, like playing lemonade stand. I have that space. Like, what a blessing. Yeah. It's actually, less expensive house than we were in before, to have that extra space where I can make some choices about what that looks like. And we could use that space as that consulting, like front desk conference room space. And we might, but for now we're enjoying what it looks like and how it's set up. I think you also have to be willing to invite people into your home, right? So I think on the consulting side, there's a professionalism that's expected and anticipated for that high price that you might be charging. And so while I don't mind having people to my home, and I do some other things where it's, meet me on the back porch and we'll talk through this, it's good relationship building. Not every client's like that.
Got it. Now, I feel like when you were going through your job hunt, you had a few different offers and a few different scenarios that you're trying to decide between. And I know at one point you were trying to decide between the LLC versus the W-2 employee, right? Can you talk about that for a little while?
Yeah. So I had given notice that my current employer,
previous employer,
something new. I knew I needed to go. I needed something different. I knew that I wanted to do some consulting work. I had some clients lined up, but also I come from a background where like a paycheck matters and consistency matters, and that foundation matters. My husband works really, for a large corporation, and he makes good money, and we would be okay, but I would not be okay. Like, I'm a working mama. That's part of who I want to be and what I'm good at. And so I wanted to do something. And there was an offer that came that was more of a W-2 job that was more in line with what I had been doing. And I just was like, I don't know that I need to jump from this apple to a different kind of apple, right? I need to really have a different adventure. And then there was an organization that had reached out earlier in the year, and they reached out again, and they're like, hey, would you have this conversation? And I was like, I'll have the conversation. I don't know. And they reached out and offered me the job, or not a job, the contract, pretty much like within days, like one interview, 1 hour, yo, we need you. And it was so flattering. But the way it works when you're in a consulting firm, working for another consulting firm, is they can hire you as a person, as a W-2 employee, or often they can hire you as a contractor. Either way, when you're really working through a consulting firm, they're going to ask you to get a goal done. They're not necessarily going to tell you how to do it. And so there's this whole independent contractor legality of what they provide and how they provide it. But the benefit for me was, if I took a W-2 role, I was actually going to be making less. And they have more control. They get to tell me more and do more and micromanage a bit more. And because I already had some consulting clients, the consulting role, because they're not paying for benefits, pays a little higher, and gives you a bit more leverage to kind of write how you want to approach things. And so I really had to do the math there. And I have a master's in accounting, but there's some laws around that.
Yeah.
Uh, and what I found was if you are purposeful about tracking your expenses, which we were already doing because we had a consulting firm, um, the idea of going as a 1099 employee or a contractor, not employee, is a much better fit for our family and what we needed. Now, if I was a single mom who needed healthcare, if my spouse was not able to carry my benefits, if I was uncertain about the number of hours and longevity of this, maybe a W-2 might have been more appropriate. Mm-hmm. But for me, that decision was math and some stability I had in my kind of support system. Right. I think I also just really am cleaving and kind of just loving this consulting firm like growth that we're seeing, right? So it's something we've been nurturing for almost a decade anyways, through some speaking events and some of our efforts, and to really be able to have enough client work through this client and others to have it be my full-time gig if I need it to be, or to bring aboard, partners that can also take some of that weight off. Mm-hmm. It feels really good. And now I'm new to it, so I reserve the right to come back in a year and be like, well, that blew up in my face. But for now, it's been really exciting. And it's been amazing how my friends and network have like reached out. They're like, can you do this? Can you do this? And if I'm not the right person, I'm like, well, I'm not the right person, but I have a guy. And they're like, well, will you just connect the guy? And I'm like, oh, okay.
So do you also have anything exclusive with one corporation right now, or are you completely independent?
So I am Veranda, which is our LLC, is our consulting thing. So I personally am assigned to one of our bigger contracts, but then we also have other work with other organizations as well. So I have more hours if I want them, then I know what to do with, which is not what I thought I would be in. And I think that's the message, I guess, to those who are in a corporate role is if you're like me and you're like, well, the math says I have the flexibility to make some other choices. And you have leverageable skills, tech skills, business skills, and the leap of faith can be worth it. Now, that's not to say this could not have fallen flat. There was, with one of our contractors, there was an extra background step that needed to be done. And I had budgeted for some hours. My budget can handle it, but I don't like when somebody's like, by the way, you can't come in on Monday because, XYZ background has to be done again. It's like, this is new for me, right? So I'm a long-time salaried employee. Like you get paid on the 1st and the 15th. Consulting is very different.
You'll have to keep track of all your own records. And how often will you get paid? Just every time that their contract is?
It depends on the client. So we have clients that want to be billed weekly for hours worked. So if I'm working with an independent business that needs an e-commerce site, so they pay as they go. So they'll pay up front to get the original build and then bill for hours as they need additional changes. And then if a company has a longer term thing, so say they're saying, we actually want like 30 hours a week over the next 6 months. Okay. How is that going to work? So for going through another consulting firm, a lot of times that's billed at the end of the month, and then they have a window to pay.
Okay.
And so if I'm subcontracting that, then I have to float that money, right? So it's always about making sure you're clear on what those boundaries are. And so far we're doing okay. But it's lining up the work. And because again, we already had the consulting firm, right? So we have a little gift shop, but we had a full consulting firm. So we already have the software and the ability to run kind of payroll to our 1099 employees. We already have the ability to track hours and deliverables. So none of that is outside of what we normally do. And if you're a salaried employee and already reporting weekly what you do anyways, I mean, there are some salaried employees who maybe they just do a timesheet, but they know they're working 8 hours a day, right? Yeah. It's not much more difficult than that.
I remember at one point when you were trying to go through that whole, should I do 1099 or W-2? There was also the idea of like, well, salaried versus hourly versus independent contractor. So are you billing your consultant hours? I just smacked my microphone. So when is it almost like being hourly when you're doing the consultant?
So an hourly, it's different. So an hourly employee clocks in and they do what they're told.
Yep.
right? You're like moving widgets or you're doing what you're told.
Yes.
You're answering however many calls an hour.
And the way that they want you to do it.
And the way they want you to do it, where they want you to do it with the tools they give you.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot more controls there. A salaried employee is given a goal. And no matter if you're sick or whatever, like, or you work 10 hours or 40 hours, you meet that goal. Or if you work 80 hours, you meet that goal, you get that paycheck.
And you get the same
Don't
paycheck.
get fired.
If you work 40 hours, you get the same paycheck. If you work 80 hours, you get the same paycheck.
For the most part, yes. Right? Like it takes a whole lot of work to dock a salaried person's pay. So as a contractor, you write your contract, right? So you may say, hey, I'm going to make $1,000 a month for an average of, or about 10 hours a week or 5 hours a week or whatever that looks like. And you may just have like a contract where it's like, you just pay me that $1,000 a month. And I just invoice you and said, yes, I worked this month. That's an option. For some contracts, it's here's the scope of work. And when that's done, you pay me this, or before that, you pay me this deposit, or you pay in full first, you may have that. A lot of contract work is done at an hourly rate. So you actually bill them by the hour. And so let's just use 100 because it's easy, or 50. If you work 20 hours, you get paid that $50 an hour. If you work 60 hours, you get paid $50 an hour for every single one of those hours. Now, if you were actually hourly, you'd get overtime. So there's additional like labor rules there.
Yes.
Right. But the volume, you're not making $7.25 an hour. So if you're making $7.25 an hour as a contractor, there's something wrong. Because after the math is done, you're making below minimum wage or something, but that's not the situation, right? You're usually being paid for professional service of some sort, your expertise, that. So what you can get done in an hour might have taken them 10 hours. And so you charge a premium for that. There's a really great meme, like with a guy and a hammer, and he just like hits it. He's like, you're not paying me for hitting this with a hammer once. You're paying me for the 50 years of experience it took to know where to hit it.
Yeah.
And so that like salary versus hourly versus contract 1099 employee with billable hours is very different, because as someone who came from the corporate environment, if you were billing hourly, we were paying overtime. Our contractors most often were not billed at an hourly rate. They were billed by statement of work.
Okay.
And so it's just a very interesting navigation as you look through the contracts. They're very different with all of our clients. And we have kind of some standards on our end, but if a client has a contract and that's what they want and it makes sense, and we can agree to it, then we'll bill the way they want us to.
Nice. Okay. So let's go on to, we talked a little bit about your home setup and your multiple different things that you've got your fingers in, and your husband is working from home and you have a housekeeper and a few other things. Where do you want to go from here?
Well, let's talk about actually having time for kids.
Yes, let's do it.
So, especially through the pandemic, electronics kind of got out of hand. We had a desktop computer that we set up with Minecraft for our son, and he loved it, and he's good at it, and he does little codey things, and it's awesome. But he could do that for 48 hours straight and not eat or sleep or move. And so we had to pull back, and we're doing better with that. I think it's something a lot of parents have dealt with. Pre-pandemic, it was like, you need to have guidelines. You need to, no more than 30 minutes a day. And it's like, I think about pandemic times and I'm like, I'm pretty sure there were days when that's all he did. He woke up, plugged it in. I'm sure I threw food at him. But that's not the engaging, hands-on parenting that I want to pretend that I do and hopefully aspire to do. And so I have been trying desperately to block off time. So every Thursday, block off time. Wednesdays, and this is Wednesday, is my kind of late night to do thing. So if it's a meeting or my class, I try to target that day. That doesn't always work. I had a group meet over the summer, and it was like always on Thursdays in the afternoon, like that. It really worked for me, but you've got to do what you've got to do. And then that time I have with my kids, I try to think about what I want to accomplish. We used to have a jar that had like slips of paper pre-COVID. We were like, we're going to put all this stuff in, all these ideas we can do from home. We never touched that thing, but still haven't touched it. But I try to think. So today, my daughter had preschool, and our nephew did the in-class parent participation, which you have to do for co-op. Somehow he thought he didn't have to parent this afternoon, or not parent, but like babysit. So my husband and I had to juggle what was going on in our meetings. And so I had a block of time that I had to be, on point. I was like, okay, what do I want to do? I was like, I want to do watercolor with her. Like, I don't care how many episodes of Strawberry Shortcake we end up watching. I don't care if she actually eats whatever I make for lunch. But at some point during this time period, I want to accomplish watercolor. And she had mentioned it this morning, and I got it out while she was gone. And it might have only been 10 minutes, but I put my phone and my computer away, and we sat and we watercolored.
Nice.
She then told me she was really proud of her painting because it looked like blood red. And I was like, yeah, you and your brother need to stop talking about zombies. Thomas the Train, you painted them red. We don't need to say that it's blood red. But it's about that moment. I can say, I watercolored with my kid today.
Yeah.
And she can say, Mommy, we did this picture together. Do I wish I could have had more time with her? Do I wish I could have maybe been present enough to talk about like mixing red and white to make pink or red and yellow to make orange? Sure. But I watercolored with her today.
Good.
And so you have to carve out that time. I'm not always as good at it as I'd like to be, but I did that today. And you have to give yourself some grace because, yeah.
What do your weekends look like?
So this weekend's a little different because it's Halloween weekend, but normally, now again, I'm only a month out or maybe 6 weeks out from a corporate gig. I shut down on the weekends. So I don't do client work on the weekends.
Good.
Like I had to set a boundary because I'm a workaholic and I do client work on the weekends. I will say during the pandemic, there were times when in my corporate role, there were needs for virtual event facilitation or something over the weekend, and you make time for that. But I am very fortunate to have a very businessy office-based role. So it's not nursing, it's not processing, it's not supporting. It's not that job where they wanted me to like talk to dev teams across the world. Like I don't have that. I don't have deploys and 4 a.m. I've had roles like that, but I don't have that. I don't have to wait till, Sunday at 2:15 a.m. to do a deploy. I really have some flexibility. And so I can say weekends are for my family. So this weekend, when I'm done, I have some client meetings until I think 3 p.m. On Friday, I start work at about 6. So I work from 6 until 8. I help my neighbor with her horses, or try to every morning. And she's this great lady, and I like petting horses. So it's like 10 minutes of my day. I get to pet a horse. Sometimes I have to scoop poop, but they seem to be potty trained right now. So we're good. And
you said 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. You're doing that?
Yep. So 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. I work. And then from like 8 a.m. to 8:15.
Just a quick break. Okay.
Little break. And then if a kid needs shuffled, it's usually Marion to preschool. I do that, or my husband does. And my husband always takes, or he can take the bus. And then I work. I just work all day. And kids get off the bus. We're very fortunate that they're pretty self-sufficient, thanks to the pandemic. Like they know mommy and daddy are locked up. And, sometimes you got to like press pause on a webinar or pause what you're doing to like go be like, stop hitting each other. I can hear you. But for the most part, from 6 a.m. until it's 5:30, like they're not bothering me. Nobody's come looking for me. Right. So I can work a solid day so that Friday, if I'm already, I'm at my max, I can feel like I've either, when I had my corporate job, I'd given them the hours. And in the client side, I can say, okay, I've accomplished what I can for this week. And I think that's the nice thing about being billable is you give what you can give. And that's it. Like, so our weekend, which was your actual question, this weekend is crazy. We've got 3 trunk or treats. The first one's for our preschool, but it's only like 7 families. So we are decorating 1 car once, and then we have 3 bags of goodies that I will go buy. So we'll have like the little one for the preschool with more, I don't know, crunchy friendly stuff. And then the next day is the baseball little league trunk or treat. And that is a big deal. And I have recruited the nephew to come do setup with me. And we'll probably take our son because he's friends with a couple of kids. And so we'll do setup for the other things that are not our car. And then we'll just open our car back up and pull out another bag of goodies.
The same stuff that you had the day before. Okay.
And then, yes. And then on Sunday is the mother's group that's nearby. It used to be a MOPS group, but it's not anymore. We're not affiliated with them. So it's an evening mother of preschoolers group. And we call it Westside Indie Mom Squad. And we also have a trunk or treat. So I'm going to pull in, open up my trunk, and have another bag of goodies. And so my kids actually get to go to trunk or treats this year. So they're all distanced, right? They have like specific parking spots. And I'm going to be taking a hot dog. And then I think my son is some kind of Minecraft character. Steve, maybe? I don't know.
It sounds fun.
But,
That's fun. Yeah,
that's
a winner.
Like, I won't be working. I mean, if there was an issue with a client's website, like I could troubleshoot, but I don't have to think about any of it. And it's awesome.
You kind of like said I'm a workaholic, and it kind of just rolled off your tongue like you've said it before. So do you want to talk about that a little bit?
I would. So if I did not have children, have you seen the movie The Net? Is it Sandra Bullock?
Many years ago? Was it old?
Yeah. So it's like the 90s, and she's like locked in her apartment, and she has like 3 screens, which was a big deal back then.
Right.
And she like orders her food, also a big deal in the 90s. And it like gets dropped off at her door, and her groceries get dropped off at her door. She just doesn't leave her house.
Yeah.
I would be perfectly content. Yeah. I'm an extrovert, love talking to people, but love my kids, would never like not want to have them, adore them, love my husband. Me and my computer might have like a little love affair here. Like I can plug in and get that done and feel accomplished and feel very fulfilled. And that's not always the healthiest thing. So I was really into coding at a very young age. So background about me, I started building computers with my uncle when I was probably 6 or 7. That was 30 years ago. So we like soldered batteries on motherboards, and I coded websites, and I was in elementary school, and I loved it, and had a little website business with my sister, and we did little home pages for pets and adoption centers. And I do like hacks, I guess was what you'd call them, or like where you'd change the color code on the little animal. And eventually that company actually developed their own, but like we were doing that on the side, and I loved it. But I will dream in HTML. Like I will obsess over an Excel file, and I have to turn it off. Like I have to, because I'm also an extrovert, I have to put in those boundaries. I have friends who play video games, like D&D and like other, I'm very geeky, but I can't do it. Like I literally, the last video game I played was, I don't know, The Simpsons, Xbox 367. And I'm a big Simpsons fan. And I literally plugged it in, and I didn't stop until I won. I would be those people you see on like Law and Order, who's like, I'm playing, I'm a zombie. Oh, I have children in the house. I had no idea. And that's not healthy.
Right. I recognize a little bit
like
of that.
turn those things off. And my son is like, Mom, play Minecraft with me. You're good at this. And I'm like I can't, I can't say no to it. So it's like an addictive personality, but like to kind of healthy activities, but nothing's healthy if you do it that much.
Yep. My son did the same thing to me. He's like, Mom, I think you would really like this. And I'm like, don't. If you, like my parents didn't allow me to have a gaming system when I was like, I guess in my teens. Maybe they recognized it in me, but they back in the like, what was it, the 90s I was allowed to rent one. So every once a month I could rent a gaming system for like 3 days or something like that. And I would play all night. Like I would play till I had blisters on my fingers, and then they'd be gone for the month. And I was like, okay, yeah. So I just have recognized that I shouldn't play video games. And he introduced me to Animal Crossing. And I was like, I'm interested in other things. I'd rather watch a webinar. I'd rather like learn about, the website that I'm working on or something like that. And
I'd rather play the game, which is why I can't do it.
And so I started playing, and I kind of took over the Switch for a few weeks, and then I was able to let it go again. Thank God I got it out of my system. But yeah, I don't want to go down that path. I don't have enough time in the day.
Facebook game. It was like Farm something that everybody was obsessed with for a long time.
I don't know if I got into that one.
Farmville. I played it for a minute, but I was like, oh no, like I literally like I get sucked.
I had to delete Candy Crush off my phone. I was not a good mom.
I won't play it.
About 2 weeks, I was not the best mom I could have been. And I had to delete it off my phone.
There was some game, it had like water drips. It's an app. And like I didn't stop till I won. And now games don't let you win and be done. So like I literally can't touch them.
Yep. It's just better not to.
Yeah. And I think it's good to know those boundaries, like whatever that might be. And so while I think I could probably get a little more geeky and a little more techie, I've considered, even as I took this break, like maybe I should go to like a code boot camp. And I was like, you'd be really good at that. Like in my head, I'd be really good at that.
Mm-hmm.
I probably would never speak to people again. Yeah, I shouldn't do that.
Hmm.
Like, and I think you recognize when your subconscious has given you boundaries for a reason.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. I had to cut myself off of garage sales. Like I just can't. I can't do that. I would go every weekend and I would spend all our money on things that we literally didn't need. And it's just better to not go.
yeah, you shouldn't, don't, no. And I think there comes a point in your, so I grew up very financially poor.
Mhm.
And there's part of the reason I want to work. I want that stability of two incomes. That's very important to me. But also as I make up for that by buying my kid, as I look around his room, like all of the things, right? Like there comes a point where you're like, we have the money to replace the things. We don't have to buy at this speed or this fervor or this whatever. But it's a process, right? It goes from, we can't, when Wes was really little, like we're doing the math on how we're going to afford diapers, right?
Mhm.
Like you're budgeting very closely or not budgeting and getting in the hole, one of the two. And then for a time it's like, oh, we have some room and I'm gonna give him the childhood I dreamed of. And then you're like, Lord have mercy, what has gotten into our house?
Yeah.
Like before, at least we hid it in the attic, but now we get this big, it's everywhere. And it's like, okay, stop. The American Girl, catalog came in the door. Get that thing out of here before she sees it.
Yep.
Like, I don't let mom see it because she's gonna buy like me. It's about like, if I want it, if we need it, we're at a place in our lives we can get it, but you have to stop and acknowledge what's actually needed, right? So when you go to a garage sale, like, oh my God, that $70 thing is only $1. You don't need the $70 thing.
No.
And that's hard. Those boundaries are hard.
So you're in your son's room and you showed me. You don't have to show it now, because our listeners won't be able to see it, but you're talking about like being in your son's room and it's a kid's room. It's not like a beautiful Pinterest room right now.
No, it's not. And in 10 minutes I could make it Pinteresty, but we don't need like, it doesn't have to be that, right? Well, so we have like, here we go. We have this really cool like wall mural, like we do some Pinteresty things, but at the end of the day, this, just like his nursery, is going to be full of stuff. And he needs to be able to sleep here and get dressed in here. And we have like a quiet corner where he can kind of read. It's not a huge room, but he's got like a little, which is hilarious because we have this huge house, but like the kids' rooms are small. Don't ask me why they did that. But he's got like a little chair and a bookcase where he's got some quiet things, but like we don't keep all of his toys in his room. When we had our first house, your toys stayed in your room because we literally had a living room, a kitchen, and bedrooms, and your stuff stayed in your room. But it tends to wander even in that environment. And so in this environment and because of COVID, we designed a specific room downstairs as like the playroom, which is, I kind of felt like I arrived as an adult. I was like, we have a playroom. I have a room that they just play in. Dude, it's like the storage junk room full of stuff they play with. They do play in there when I clean it, but then like there comes a point where it's like, this is a really great space to play in until you like dump everything. And then it's no longer fun. Well, if you have less stuff to dump, then it's always fun.
It's our 2-car garage is that room right now.
Do what?
Our 2-car garage is that room right now. It has carpet in it now. So it's like a big 2-car garage playroom.
Yep. So we 3 houses. So our first house was my house, the house I bought after college when I got my first job, and before the market crashed and they'd let anybody buy a house. And we were talking about converting our 2-car garage into either like playroom living space or like a master. That's some effort, that laying down carpet. Like if you try to add plumbing, it's a huge deal. Like, and it made more sense to buy a different house.
This is literally just a garage with a carpet on the floor.
Dude,
like, we can roll it back up.
No, but garage with carpet. You know what's awesome about that? You can have them ride bikes in there and you don't care.
Yeah. We have a trampoline out there. We have one of those like cozy yoga type swings for kids.
Ooh, and you
Sensory
can actually
kind of
get to
like
the rafter to actually like hang it properly so it won't fall.
we bought it for Christmas last year, but someday we're gonna hang it. We're
Okay,
ready to put it in any minute.
fine. We have a stupid big house. I grew up in a like when we were lucky 2-bedroom apartment. So literally 2 bedrooms, maybe 1.5 bath, living room, on-site kitchen, right? Like that's the size. Um, I'm pretty sure our playroom is the size of a 1-bedroom. Like it's a huge playroom, and it's carpeted like it's old carpeting, but it's got the little trampoline. It's got a day bed. It's couch thing. We have a nugget and we have room for them to use it. Let me tell you, they don't tell you when you order the nugget that it's not going to fit in your house.
Oh my goodness.
Like it's
I've
a couch. It's literally a couch. If you do not have room to put another little love seat in your room, you can get the nugget, but you better find somewhere to store it because that thing is everywhere. And we have a gymnastics bar. So in Indy, where we live, there's a gymnastics bar place, and they had a clearance sale at the beginning of the pandemic. So for like $40, $50, it's called a kip bar.
Nice.
We have a full-on kip bar.
Nice.
But I'll tell you, it's an awesome thing for the kids. So, but you can get creative. I've seen some of my friends do some amazing things in their much smaller spaces to add energetic spaces for their kids. So
yeah, we had to
garage idea.
When we were home all of the time, and we live in Arizona and it's flipping hot outside in the summertime, and you can't basically step a foot outside without boiling your brains out. You have to bring something inside and just have activities. Yeah, I'm in Arizona, like the Gilbert area. It's by Phoenix. Yeah. We got those little like balance things. It's like a semi, how do you say it? A hemisphere, like a half circle.
Yoga ones, right? That you balance on
Yeah, they're like little balance balls, and you can step on them, and like just things that we could put out. We bought jump ropes. I
feel like we all became like inclusion teachers, and we were like, let me get a sensory room put together for you. Mm-hmm. And our other house, all of it was in their rooms, even just like next door. So our second house. And yeah, you have to have the wiggle seat. You need the wiggle seat.
You got a wiggle seat.
You're not going to sit on their remote meetings without a wiggle seat. We did not get a wiggle seat. We got it's an old office chair with wheels, but it wiggles. So it's fine.
Oh yeah. They about broke our office chairs trying to spin in them. And basically our office chair was like gymnastics equipment for a while. Yeah. I wanted to kind of go back and talk a little bit about your work-life balance. And you're talking about being a workaholic, but trying to find balance for your family. So do you feel like you want to work, you need to work, you would not be yourself if you didn't work because you want to be busy, because you want to like help people? I know that you are in a helpful role and helping a lot of people do things that they wouldn't be able to do for themselves. What is it for you?
A good question. It's fulfilling, right? I get energy from others and pouring into them and seeing them successful makes me happy. Probably some of it, like if we got real deep, is like a place of fear, right? Like I could be busy and not get paid.
Yeah.
I'm not independently wealthy, so that's not happening. Mm-hmm. But there's like a value that I think we assign in our brains to work, paid work. And I want to be good at things. And while I love parenting, is it terrible that I love parenting evenings and weekends like it was intended to be when I had them? I guess it's a terrible thing to say sometimes, but that's how I intended to do it, right? At first I was like, I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom. And then I was like, oh, it looks like I'm going to work because we need to pay our bills. And then I really bought into that. And it's like,
you've embraced this lifestyle and you're not always feeling like you're missing out because this is actually what you want to do.
Well, and I think it's very healthy for them. And I say for our youngest, especially with our experience this year, like full-time care is not the right fit for her right now and where she is. But I think that there's such value. We send our kids to public school. So there's such value in having kids around a diverse group of kids, not kids who look like them, not kids who have the resources they do, not where they're the best or the brightest all the time, where they really are challenged to really question their worldview, which I mean, that's a big statement for a 4 and 8-year-old, but really challenging them to show up and be respectful and kind and have integrity. And also, that's important for them. And it's important that I fill my hours when they're not here in things that make me feel like I'm getting that same experience. And so I want to be around smarter people than me. And I want, and not just my husband, and he is, but like other people. I want to learn new things. I want to use the time I have here on earth to be better at whatever I'm approaching and learn and pour into others. And I mean, I guess if I had a bajillion dollars in the bank, maybe I could do that for free, but I don't do it for free. So I don't know. It sounds like a whole lot of smoke and mirrors, but that's why it's important to me.
And you are really good at what you do, and probably have skill sets that probably the skill sets of 5 people in normal. And I don't know.
And that's why I charge what I do.
Yes. When my computer was breaking, and I finally went into the Remote Mamas work group or Facebook group, and I was like, I think I maybe clicked on a bad link or something is breaking on my computer. And it was that same week that I know that the iOS systems had like a breach, and there were like these, urgent updates that everybody needed to do really quick. And my computer broke all at the same time. And I still don't know. I ended up doing a factory reset. But I was on a call with Jennifer for about an hour that day. And she's like, let's make sure you have things backed up before we try this next thing. And I am so thankful that you had me do that, because I don't think I would have known to go in and select the documents and files, extra, boxes.
So many times people think they're like, well, yeah, I sync things to the cloud. I'm like, yeah, but you downloaded like the most important thing ever yesterday in your downloads folder. And that's the only place you saved it, and it's like,
yes. So I saved all those things. I can't necessarily find them all right now because it all got dumped into like one folder and they're all in the cloud drive. But I can find them eventually.
If you knew kind of what you called it and the date that you made it, you probably could search in there and dig it out.
Yep. I'm finding things as I need them. Thankfully, I named a lot of things, but I have your voice in the back of my head every single time I name a file now, because I think I was putting dashes on my dates and you were like, don't do that. So what's the right way to do it?
So I always, for a date, I would actually do no dashes, no underline scores. I would do a 2-digit month, 2-digit, is that month? Yeah, month, day, and a 4-digit year or 2-digit year, whatever you prefer. And then underscore is an acceptable form, but like you don't want to use like this dash or that dash and using like an M dash or this dash, like that. There's just historically been issues. I mean, they'll take them now, but like you just don't do it. Not a fan. I one of my clients has a project right now migrating a bunch of files, and each kind of shoebox of data is a little different. And it's always fun to be like, oh, well, we tested this in a proof of concept, but we didn't test having, a file path as part of your file name. And that dash means file path. Or we didn't test it with a special character or like foreign language keys. It's like, I didn't know you'd have that. And you ask these discovery questions, you try to account for things. But yeah, letters, numbers, underscores, leave it at that.
That's it. Okay. So, and I don't even know what to do with my old ones that still have dashes and things.
So that we could script rename them all using DOS prompt and an Excel file, but it's probably just safe to leave it for now.
Yeah, I'll never forget also, because I was like, don't look at my desktop because it's kind of messy right now. And it was
you had like 9,000 documents on your desktop.
I take screenshots when I was teaching English, and whenever I needed to document something that was happening, like, and I would need to prove that I was there or something like that. Like I was in the meeting, pay me. I was taking screenshots and I just wasn't cleaning them up. So
no, because you're on a Mac, right?
Yeah.
So there's a setting where you can actually tell it to put it in a folder. Now I like to have them on my desktop too. So I actually don't automatically put them in a folder, but I do have something that says shot and it's just a folder. And then at the end of the day, I just select them all and drop them there.
So you have a routine. How do you close the end of your day? How do you wrap up your day?
Usually I'm on a call like this and a child comes in and I have to close my computer, and then I come back to it later that night, or I open it the next day and go, Lord, where was I? But if I'm doing things correctly, so I just got a new computer. So I left my corporate job. I had gotten a new computer recently there, and then I left that job like 2 months later. So,
and you asked if you could buy the computer.
I mean, it was a $5,000 machine. I mean, they needed them and they were never going to get another one approved. Like, if I had had the old one, they would have said yes, but because I had the brand new one, like it's fine. And they may not have said yes even then, but it's okay. So I'd gotten that one. And then I was leaving my role and I was like, I'll wait, I'll see if the consulting thing, because we have some Windows computers, like I'll be fine. It was like 2 days before I was done at my corporate gig. And I was like, just trying to set up the Windows computer on a Sunday. And I was like, I'm going to throw this thing through the window. And my husband's like, oh, it's just the keyboard. You're not used to it. I was like, no, I'm going to throw it through the window. And so what's funny is I am a dual user. So I've always had 2 or 3 computers.
Me too.
That I actively use. So I had a fully powered house Dell. I had a fully powered house, like MacBook Pro.
Yep.
I record on both because you have to train both if you're a trainer. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was not having it. And they're nice computers. Like they're a little older, but they were nice computers. And I was trying to hold out for the new MacBook Pro, but I couldn't. So I actually bought a computer 4 weeks ago, a MacBook Pro, a little 14-inch. I called it the Princess because I had the Queen that I had to return. So I had the Princess. She only had 8 gigabytes of RAM and girlfriend could not keep up with the recordings. So I was going to wait for the new ones to come out. And then I was going to buy like a 16 and like fully load it. But I'd kind of fallen in love with the 14-inch size. So I went to the store. So Mac just came out with a new model, but it came out yesterday. So I went to the store Saturday because it's a little bit of a drive. And I was like, hey, can I even return this one that I bought? Because I had originally like bought it knowing they were going to come out with a new model. And I was like, this will be the shop one and I'll do this, more expensive one. And they were like, yeah, full return. And I was like, I can do what?
Because it's within like 4 weeks, days. Right? Yeah.
What? 32 days.
Oh,
32 days. That is outside their 14-day no questions asked return policy.
Oh.
They returned it. So that's like 2 angel looking down on me Apple presents this year. So I don't need to ask for more. But then I went on opening day instead of ordering my Mac because I was late because they had announced it like 2 weeks ago. So if I ordered my Mac Saturday, I would not have gotten it until Christmas. And one of my clients I have a computer for, but I don't for the others. And I'd have to use that Windows computer and I wasn't doing it. So I went and waited at the Apple store. It's the first time I've ever waited for an electronic for myself. Like I've waited for like a boyfriend or a girlfriend to like get a new gaming system or, phone or whatever, but I had a corporate phone. I didn't
like Black Friday.
Yeah, it was totally Black Friday. So I was like there at 9 a.m. They didn't open till 11. It's like, couldn't get in the building. I tried to like wait inside. So I went and got my hair done at the Dry Bar, by the way, love them. And then I went and got in line. I was number 2 in line because I had gone to the Dry Bar, but I could get in the door and I got a fully loaded. Like they have 2 options for the 14-inch and then they have like extras. I got all the extras and I only got 1 machine. So instead of having 2, I have 1, but I am thrilled. But that means I got another like angel looking down at me at the Mac store. That's 3 in 1 year. It's not going to happen again. And I've set up 3 computers in the span of like 4 months. So I say all of that to say my routine has changed. Right now I have like Grammarly, Adobe Creative Cloud to install, Camtasia to install on this machine. And so on my desktop, on a Mac, you have those install files. So my routine will be as soon as I install these, I'll delete those. Mm-hmm. I then also clean out my downloads folder every night. And this is something new I started because I constantly had to clean out my documents and my downloads. And so I'm really trying to stay cloud-based. And so that could be Dropbox or Google Drive or, whatever your system is or your client system is. But I literally, my computer is, you open it, it has all the software, but you have to have the keys to the kingdom to get to the files you want to work with.
Yep.
You also have to get in the machine, but that makes sure that like, God forbid, I have to replace this tomorrow. All of my stuff's backed up. It also keeps my desktop from looking like yours.
I actually started cleaning it up again yesterday. I was like, if I'm going to talk to it, no, I'm kidding.
It's fine. And I talk to people all the time and see their desktops, but I'm also training. So I show people my computer all the time. And so when you do that, or you go to a client, you open things, like you don't want it to be like, hey, there's my tax returns from last year. Like they don't need to see that file. It needs to be gone.
I actually also had an Apple Angel. I interviewed someone like, oh my gosh, like 50 interviews ago. And she mentioned that there was like a known issue with keyboards and my computer qualified for a replaced keyboard. And along with that came a new battery, which was like, my computer would only last maybe 2 to 10 minutes unplugged. And so
let me tell you, if that keyboard fails again, and mine failed 5 times before they
Oh
did
boy.
that, but they no longer have many of those keyboards left. Just go sweet talk them. Just be like, this is the butterfly keyboard. Can you replace it? Mine also, do your keys rub off? Or do you have an
Yeah.
external keyboard?
It was rubbed off. Yeah. And I used an external keyboard, but my keyboard was also rubbed off.
Oh, mine rubbed off. Like I got it replaced 5 times in 2 years. And that my E key and my
Yep.
D key rubbed
Yep.
off within like 2 weeks every time. And I don't
Mhm.
have like caustic fingers, I don't think.
Yeah.
It's
No,
just a bad design.
that's so interesting. But what is a butterfly keyboard? What does that mean?
So it was a design that Apple used. So do you have a touch bar at the top?
No.
You have a butterfly keyboard.
Okay.
So it's a recall. It's a recall that they didn't do a full recall on. It was like an optional recall.
So basically, if people complain, they'll fix
This
it.
keyboard service program. So they did that instead. But it has to be that letters or characters do not appear and the keys feel sticky or do not respond in a consistent manner.
Mhm.
And it was the MacBook 2015 to 2019.
Yep. I was
Right.
2018, I think.
You need to go make friends with your Apple manager.
Okay.
But if it's
So
working, I mean, it's a wonderful machine.
Yeah. I'm just
Yeah.
so thankful actually to have the battery. Because that was like I can finally unplug my computer and walk away. It's so
Did
great.
you not have it? Apple will replace any battery with less than 80% of its life left.
Even outside of warranty or outside of
Do you not have Apple Care?
not anymore, I don't think.
That might be part of it. But
Well, I got one, so I'm happy.
whatever it's done. Yeah, no, they have to take off the entire back of
Mhm.
your machine to replace that keyboard. And so they actually have to lift the motherboard out of it, the display drive, like all of it. So it's literally like getting a new machine. So I love that they replaced your battery. I was kind of surprised they did, but that's awesome.
Me too. But again, I was so thankful that you had walked with me through some of the steps of like where to back some things up and how to get things back again. And because I had to do it all over again when I went in, they're like, "Did you back it up?" And I was like, "I just did like 2 weeks ago, but I think I know what I am doing." So I wasn't too scared. And actually, I don't think they did have to factory reset it again. I think I was able to maintain what I had.
Yeah, they're just scared they'll lose your data. And Apple does have a pretty solid time machine. So if you have, my challenge has always been I don't have enough space
Yep.
on my iCloud to store a
didn't-
time machine.
Nope, couldn't.
Now that my stuff's much cleaner on my desktop, I can time machine it with no problem. And I could do that to an external drive. But I like just grabbing the stuff you want. You don't need everything else.
You were talking about your putting everything on the cloud, but right now my like personal Gmail account is full, like 100%. And I don't necessarily want to pay extra because I'm already paying extra to like, who am I paying extra to? Apple and also somewhere else.
Dropbox.
Yes, I need to expand more.
I have all three.
iCloud storage.
So I have all three. As a business, we are likely going to use like an Amazon service to do those backups. I think what you're getting on Dropbox and Google, and that is the convenience, right? So it's that co-authoring experience. If you have Microsoft, you probably also have a OneDrive or a SharePoint drive. And so coordinating those and having purpose for those is important. As a trainer, right? Like I use them all, but it's important for me to know where my stuff is. So I used Dropbox for a very long time, but that's $100 a year.
I filled them all up though. So I keep like just moving to the next thing and that's free.
So you got to find the one you like, stick with it and pay for that one.
I think I'm paying for Amazon, like for photos and stuff. Is that an option?
Yeah, they have an Amazon backup. Yeah.
And then also the Apple version.
Yeah, it's a rocket for sure. And what's really funny is most of them are using like the Amazon server
Anyway,
to host. I need to consolidate mine as well. What I really, and I've looked at doing some of that. We actually also have external hard drives. So that same uncle who helped me learn computering passed away right at the beginning of COVID. And I probably have 15 external hard drives of backups of his. Yeah.
Wow.
And so at some point I need to figure out which one's a backup of a backup of a backup, pull all the family pictures into one. Yeah. And like that needs to go into cold storage, right?
Yeah.
Do I want that to be on an online server? I mean, that's the only real accessible thing now. Or is it okay being on those hard drives? If the house burns down, I'll lose them. So I don't like that.
Right.
You know, it's about figuring out what that is. I do a lot of coaching around digital asset management or electronic content management. You need a single source, a single space that's organized in a way that follows the conventions and, things that you want to reference. It's a file cabinet.
It
And
takes
so
time to go
but
through paper files and digital files.
but think about that, right? Like if your grandparents had paper files and they had them organized in 7 different groupings, I mean, that's what you're doing digitally. So to do that better, we need to pick a service and maybe a second service as a backup to the service. And then you need to stop using all of the other ones.
We have an external hard drive that my husband has dumped all his photos from all of our, actually, I think both of our phones into, but I try to hook it up to my MacBook and I don't think it's compatible. That's why I couldn't do the time machine.
Yeah. So the other thing is, yes, there's a formatting issue there. It's Mac or Windows. The transfer between the two has really stopped. The other thing is that we had a networked hard drive for years and it won't connect any longer. And I'm really techy, and I took that darn thing apart, but I got to find the right cables to connect it to one of my new computers. Like there's that part of having an actual physical server or set of files. And so it's something to navigate in my free time. But
advances in technology
I just put it all in a tub, put a lid on it, and pray that part of the house doesn't burn down. It's fine.
Right?
All fine. I don't need pictures from high school. It's okay.
I've got phones somewhere that have pictures of our kids, like the only pictures of our kids from like, their ages 2 to 5 or something like that.
So I am very fortunate. Those are all loaded somewhere between Dropbox and Google. Like I'm very, very fortunate. There are some probably of my son. I bet there are some of my son that are on an actual physical hard drive. I'm sure of it.
Hey, I want to give you a little bit of space. And I know that you're going to want to go spend some time with your kids before you have to go to your class in half an hour. So I want to give you a little space to just like talk to your community, the people that you, this community that you admin is growing and big. But just like in general, the kind of women, the moms who are in that kind of community that are working, hustling, doing 2 different things. I guess hustling, not in the same sense we talked about before, but
so I mean,
go ahead.
So this is my biggest thing is don't be a jerky jerk. Do you see that?
It's on her t-shirt.
Backwards. Understand that everybody's coming from their best place. And it's hard to remember that, whether it's an in-person community or an online community, or an online community that says, hey, that MLM doesn't fit here, or that approach is not something we talk about here, or that. Understand everybody's coming from their best place. That best place may not be your perspective. Feedback you get, and I've experienced this lately, might not resonate with you. And you have no control over that other person or that other feedback or that other whatever. You're like, oh, drama. You only control yourself. So just remember that. I think take the time and space you need so that you're not triggered and a jerky jerk. I can take my own advice. But that's really all I want to say. And I love our remote working moms community. I think that we kind of go through like busy periods and lulls, but I know when someone calls for help in that space, we have a powerful group of mamas and professionals that literally will pour in and give advice. They will pick up the phone and call you. They will get on a Zoom and share with you. And it's not just me. It's not just you. There are others who are active in that community of over 1,000 women now. I think, I don't even know. See how many are there. And there are plenty of ladies in that group that kind of sit on the sidelines and read it. But, we're almost at 2,000. It's small stuff like, hey, I have to fit my desk in my master bedroom and it's a 20 by 10 room. What do I do? And we talk about lofting a bed and putting a desk under it. It's okay that you're an adult in a lofted bed. Or we talk about setting a sheet behind you or some kind of divider or doing what I'm doing. Just sit on the bed against the wall. You have to be flexible with yourself. You have to go from your best place. And
it's good.
Now I just need to take my advice.
I know, right? I think that just knowing that there are 1,000 or almost 2,000 other women who are similar in a similar boat, trying to juggle some of the same kinds of things, whether they're the manager or the typist, like it could be, at the top of the ladder or the bottom.
We literally have lawyers and everybody, all
doctors
kinds of
and pharmacists and everything. But I think
presidents
just knowing
of big companies, like it's a big group, and we have folks who do medical coding because that's what they have time and energy for. We have quite a.
But I think it kind of goes back to the whole is it the king puts his pants on one leg at a time, just like the rest of us? Like, I think that what I have found in this podcast is I'm talking to people from all of the different walks of life and, all around the world, but we're still struggling with some of the same, like, am I going to put my desk in my bedroom or not? Should I, can I close the door to my office? Like, those are the kinds of things that I have heard from every single side.
Yeah. Or like my spouse, roommate, whoever says this space, the dining room doesn't work, but it's like the only place I can get work done. And it's like, let's be real about what the contents of that is. Is my husband being a jerk? Well, maybe, or maybe you need everybody to be like, pin needle silent, and that's not a good workspace. You have to be real with each other, and you have to speak from a place of your perspective.
Right. And I think just giving each other grace, like if the kid cries or the dog barks, like, is it still professional? I think so. Like, could you have had control over it? Maybe, but
and
maybe not.
That has changed a lot due to the pandemic, right? So now it's actually like, that's kind of funny. It's fine. Like, let me see your dog.
From home too. Yeah.
And pre-pandemic, it was like, oh, your children are home.
I think everything's loosened up. And I think that we have advanced. And I know, I think I'm going to be interviewing someone from our group. Actually, going forward in the next few months, I think I'm going to be interviewing quite a few people from this particular group. And I need to mix in, since it is moms, I need to mix in. So if you are a man or someone from another country, just anywhere, please, I need to mix it up a little bit. So it's not just working moms all across the board. But I think I'm interviewing someone coming up that's got a lot of coworkers who are based out of India, and you got the chickens and the, small living quarters with lots of people in them. And it's the common, thing to just hear, to hear all of the noises and every phone call. And I think
it's understanding the trust that you have with your coworkers, that they will find time and space to listen and hear. And you have to be flexible. I think there was a lot of shame pre-COVID about some of those things. Now there are still companies though, medical related, financial related, where there is some big boundaries around both elder care and child care.
Oh yeah.
And so it just depends what field you're in, for sure.
And just to know, I think that, in a group like ours and in a podcast like this, where we have talked with so many people from different walks of life in different kinds of industries, just to know that there's other options. Like, you don't have to work in a call center. I mean, a call center might be perfect for you, but it might not be perfect for the next person. And just to know that there are a million different kinds of jobs that you can do from home.
And while I said we do have some folks doing coding and some of that, one thing that's unique about our group is you have to actually be working remotely. So we do have some job seekers. I mean, I posted when I was looking to see, maybe some advice on where to look, but it is not the place to find jobs, right? So we had an influx of that too. And I think it's good to acknowledge that needs to happen. And there are lots of spaces for that, but where are you finding community once you're there?
Yeah,
so
for sure.
So I better go. Thank you so much.
This has been fun. I'm glad that we finally did it. I think I've been trying to get you to interview for a year. Thank you.
It's been a crazy year.
Oh, yes. Well, okay. Thank you so much. I think we'll call it. And this has been Jennifer Whitt. Do you go by Jennie or Jennifer?
So I went by Jennifer for many years. I'm going by Jennie again because I am not working for the man. Oh. And I don't have to be. I was 21 when I started there, and they said Jennifer sounded more professional. Well, I don't care if it sounds more professional. I'm Jennie. Nice to meet you.
Stick it to the man. All right. Well, this has been Jennie Whitt with April Malone and Yes, I Work From Home, and we'll see you next time.
Awesome.
Thank you.